you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love? Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. And now here's your host, Rich Barris.
That'll be Don. He'll be joining us in a little bit. All right, welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. It is Friday, May 13th. We dropped a poll in Georgia, starting with the generic ballot yesterday, last night. There will be more, several more over the course of today's Friday and Saturday. All right, going with Republican primaries, Senate matchups, potential governors matchups, and then a rematch between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Plus, do party voters on the Republican and the Democratic side trust their party leaders to not favor candidates in a primary election when they are not supposed to do so? Do they trust these party leaders to basically conduct a free and fair primary? And then, of course, do all Georgia voters trust state leaders, period, to conduct free and fair elections, which is very going to be very interesting. Here's what I will say about the governor's race, which will be out today. All of Kemp's hopes and prayers. All right, we're going to be an outlier. I don't really care. All of Kemp's hopes and prayers rest on voters who say they're going to vote early but have not voted yet. If all of the votes were counted right now, Kemp would not be above 50%. If the election day votes were counted, it would be very close. If David Perdue gets Kemp to a runoff, it is my very strong belief that Brian Kemp would lose that runoff. This electorate is going to be the more moderate electorate. It's going to be the most independent electorate, less basey, less Trumpy electorate. The election day vote will be Trumpy, meaning that they will pull Kemp down. So that early vote's going to come in. At first, it's not going to look that great for Kemp because if they count it in order that it was received, which you cannot count on the state of Georgia to do. But if they do, it's going to look, kind of crappy. But then there'll be big chunks of the vote that had come in the last 2 weeks or so. And that will be pretty pro-Kemp. And then the election day vote will come in and Kemp will start to fall. All right. The question is whether he can get above 50. I'll obviously address this a lot more when the poll is finally out. But the bottom line is, we're going to be an outlier. It's not sold yet. And there is a sampling error in the poll, and you will see that the outcome is within the sampling error. All right. Really interesting races in the Secretary of State. You're just going to have to watch that. Insurance Commissioner Herschel Walker running in the Senate primary. We did Warnock against Walker again. Just keep this in mind. The screens that we did before for the locals poll were much tighter. They're people that it was a very typical traditional People's Pundit likely voter screen. I'm not going to give people that much benefit of the doubt. This one's a little bit looser of a screen because we are farther out. But I will say this, and anyone who took a look at the first article that went up so far, Republicans are much more likely to vote than Democrats. And it's more than just how you identify with a party. It's more than that. Republican-leaning voters, Republican demographics are much more likely to vote than Democratic graphics. Men versus women is huge. Age is always a big deal, guys. I mean, that's always the case with age. But when it comes to gender when we know we're going to see some kind of a gender split. In the state of Georgia, we still do see that typical age phenomena. It is not the case in a state like Florida or Ohio that younger voters are necessarily some great group for Democrats. That's just not true anymore. And then as you get older, it gets to be a more Republican friendly group. In some states, many states, that political dynamic has changed a lot. And senior voters can be much closer than they used to be, whereas that 30 to 44 age group is more Republican than it used to be. In Georgia, you see a much more traditional dynamic there, especially when you're looking at the generic ballot and the Senate races. When you're looking at the presidency, you see something totally different, and that'll be out as well. But let's take a look at it. I think they did a pretty good job quoting me, putting it up there. And then we'll take a look at region, and then I'll bring up the crosstabs, and we'll look just a lot more. All right. The CD Media Big Data Poll in Georgia finds Republicans hold a solid lead on the generic ballot statewide. Let me put this up a little bit more. There we go. Looking ahead to November, 47.2% of likely voters say they vote for the Republican candidate, while just 40.4% say they'll back the Democratic candidate. Here's my quote, which I was just going to repeat anyway. Georgia is over Joe Biden. And if you're a Democrat, it sucks to be on the ballot right now in the state of Georgia. It's hurting Democrats up and down the ballot. That's the quote. Peach State Republicans are more likely than their rather depressed Democratic counterparts to vote in the midterms this November. But they also hold an advantage among independent voters. That was not true in 2020. Among those who are certain to vote in the midterms, Republicans lead Democrats 51.5 to 41.7. That's why it's more important to look beyond this next part, which is how 76.3% of Democrats say they're certain to vote. A little bit more, it looks like only a little bit more, 81.1% of Republicans say that they're certain to vote. Yeah, Republicans have an edge, but it's only about a 5-point edge. It's not, though, because when you look in the demographics of even, that's where we get this independent margin from. Who is more likely to vote? Who's going to get their leaners out, right? And Republicans are doing a much better job appealing to their demographics and getting their demographics stoked to vote. And I'm not even sure it's anything Republicans are doing. It's what Democrats have been doing. All right. Men, 80.2% are significantly more likely than women at only 69.6% to express certainty in voting. And they are backing Republicans by a massive 53.5 to 35.9% margin. Meanwhile, women are only slightly favoring the Democratic candidate, 44.5 to 41.6. Why is this important? Go back and look at exit polls over the course of time in the state of Georgia. 2014, 2018, 2020. Go look and you will see. Even 2012 and 2016. That presidential general elections, men can be as low as 44% of the vote. Georgia is a female voting state. In midterms, sometimes men can creep up to like 47 to 49%. And it obviously has a big difference. This electorate, it's going to be bigger than 2018, excuse me. It's going to be a larger electorate, I think, than the turnout that Democrats got in 2018. But it's going to be more Republican, much more Republican friendly. All right. So, by the way, it just goes to show you, blows the hole in this like very old, very dated concept that high turnout helps Democrats. That is not always true. It is not. And in this case, men appear to be voting much closer to their proportionality, or will vote, certain vote. Each party is getting about 9 and 10 base support on the generic ballot. 91.1% of Republicans say they'll back their party's candidate. 91 flat of Democrats will do the same. But independent and third-party voters back the GOP 38 to 29. There is a significant 27.4% remaining undecided. But wait until we show you Joe Biden's approval, and we're going to tell you why that's just not going to get rosier for Democrats. It's not. Democrats hold a large 60.4 to 26.1 lead among urban voters, but Republicans lead everywhere else. Among suburban voters, Republicans are ahead 48.3 to 41.2. And among rural voters, Republicans are ahead 60.0 flat to 24.7. Those are the margins in rural Georgia that Republicans need to win in order to carry the state. It's not even close. Honestly, Democrats are lucky. There's people like Dave Wasserman out there who are bitching about every single state map that was drawn that didn't favor Democrats. Even if the FAIR project got their more Democratic favorable map, they still would have lost that seat anyway. It doesn't matter. It simply doesn't matter. By region, Democrats lead only in the Atlanta metro area, 50.6 to 35.4. White voters plan to back the Republican candidate 64.4 to 24.3 for the Democrats, while black voters are going Democratic 72.5 to 13.9. Folks, Georgia, Republicans, especially certain Republicans, can do fairly well among black voters in Georgia in some years. George W. Bush, right? David Perdue, by the way, in 2014. That's not a good number for Democrats. Everybody knows Democrats need to be way out of the 70s. Way out. Now, among those who are undecided, the lion's share is going to go to the Democrats. But drawing 14% of the African-American vote, among whom we surveyed more than we needed. So it's not like this is some sampling, subgroup sampling error. There's a large sample size for African Americans. They are about 30% of the vote in Georgia, although there'll probably be a little bit less here this year, maybe 28, 29. All right, here's the big news. The Sun Belt. The Sun Belt. And we talk about Hispanic vote shifts by region and how that has impacted whether or not the shift to Republicans that we have seen in some areas among Hispanic voters all the way from New Jersey to Florida, that shift is alive and well in the Sun Belt. All right. And that should really surprise anyone, considering we know it happened in Florida and even in the northern counties of Florida. We always fixated on the South. There are many obvious counties that butt up against that part of the Sun Belt. North Carolina, right? There's evidence there that it's not a huge share. Hispanics are not a huge share of the vote, not in North Carolina, and neither are they in Virginia. But we still saw a significant shift away from Democrats in these key races. Out in California, some of the special election for Nunes's seat, for instance, right? The Democrats are not supposed to get 20-something% of the vote, even in a district like that. That could only happen if Hispanics who are registered as independents or identified as independents before, maybe even some that are Democrats, because I can't tell you how many people we speak to that are registered Democrat and they don't recall registering as a Democrat. By the way, California, you have a lot of emergency numbers on your voter file. By the way, that's a topic for another day. It's alive and well in the Sun Belt. Hispanics in Georgia are following the trend that we are seeing in other areas of the country. They are shifting towards the GOP ahead of the midterms. They are actually slightly backing the Republican candidate. 43.8 to 43.4, obviously statistically insignificant and a dead heat. But the idea they're even tied is significant. Asian voters also continue to back Democrats 48.6 to 31.2. All right, so let's actually take a look at some of these crosstabs. I'll do it here instead of... All right, first off the bat, look at what I'm talking about with these men. And just to explain a little bit about how different pollsters can get likely voter screens. This is a likely midterm election voter screen. It's part of whether or not it goes in, voter is included in the likely voter model. If there's 6.4% that we did include, even though they said unlikely to vote, meaning the odds are greater than 0, but less than 50-50. Our voter file analysis, folks, that really is the 30 to 50 category. these people tend to vote a lot. So they may say they're unlikely to vote, but you would be foolish to ignore the fact that they have voted in every single primary for the last 4 cycles. Likely to vote, meaning the odds are greater than 50-50, was another 19%. The lion's share at just under 75% are those who describe themselves as certain to vote. All right. Young folks, obviously, only 58% said they were certain. As you go up in age, it gets higher. 66.8, 77.5, and seniors are always 90 plus. This is high, though. I mean, they're not always 90 plus, but this is high even for seniors. And we saw this in the last poll that we did with Herschel Walker and Raphael Warnock for locals, if the locals community remembers correctly. Seniors, I mentioned at the time, this was insane. That 9 and 10 were saying they were going to vote. It's high. By race, 77.9%, so just about 78% of white voters say they're going to vote. They're certain. 71% of Black or African American voters say the same. Hispanics a lot less likely at 63.4%, and Asians 65.5%. Asians, by the way, still, I don't know if I said it before, they still back the Democratic candidate. As you can see there, about 50-30, all right, or 48-31. But still a significant margin, closing the gap. But we were very fair to Joe Biden in this weighting variable. Extremely fair to him.
Too fair.
Laura argued with me over it. And you know what? She may be right. She may be right.
I'm always right.
It should probably be a little bit more conservative. It's going to be some of the area type and geography. And I think had we gone with Laura's, modeling, it would have been around 42% conservative. As it stands now, the overall is about 40% conservative. And that's because some of the area type, it probably is too suburban. She's probably right. And it may be, in the end, it may be that there's not enough northern and southern Republican representation. So, but nevertheless, better safe than sorry. All right. And I tend to go with I tend to defer to machine learning models that are usually pretty close to being accurate. But strongly approve is only 16.3%. Joe Biden is deeply unpopular in the state of Georgia. It's beyond his total number. It really is. Oh, Laura would like to add that the person who ran the CD media should mind their own business. We know how to tease a poll, and we're not going to put out anything before is the time. And I would like to add that as well. Thank you for reminding me. Okay, but look, 16.3% only approve this guy. 43.4% strongly disapprove. The intensity index is completely against Joe Biden. This somewhat approve, 21.5, could collapse at any time. These people, after looking them over, especially with their vote history, and I mean that in who did they vote for in 2020, some of them, and then who would you vote for in 2024? There's a lot of soft independents, even though the number among independents is terrible. I'm going to show you in a second. There are some people who voted for Joe Biden, say they somewhat approve, but would vote for Donald Trump if there was a rematch. That somewhat approve could just collapse at any second. It really could. And again, I think a lot of this goes back to what I was talking about with weighting, and that is just the nature of the business. So basically, nearly 6 in 10 voters in the state of Georgia disapprove of the job Joe Biden's doing. It is very, 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 very difficult, historically speaking, to hold a Senate seat or to defeat a gubernatorial candidate if your president's party in a first-term incumbent midterm, if your president's popularity, is this negative. And when you see the general election rematch, you will see that his support, his goodwill is even less than that. When a president starts trailing that badly his own approval, it's a problem. I just don't even see Joe Biden as a viable presidential candidate anymore. We have polled so many states now. We have polled how many national polls with the Public Polling Project. By the way, it's definitely kicking off this weekend. We're close enough, and I do know that it will be funded. So we got to thank everybody. And by the way, by all means, if you go there and see it is not fully funded yet and you'd like to contribute, that would be greatly appreciated. Go and check it out right now. And maybe Laura could shoot out the link. You could see how close we are. I'm assuming you guys are going to get us there. And I think you will. I think you will. All right. Yeah, I know. It's hard for everybody to see like that. All right. Let's look. Let's look like by party. Watch this. And I should have put party detail in there, which I will. But independents. 5.6% of independents and third-party voters. Ladies and gentlemen, 5.6% strongly approve of the job Joe Biden is doing as president. That's it. I can't even recall the last time I saw, because I came up and really started to learn the ropes under the Obama administration. Well, as it relates specifically to political, public polling politically. Barack Obama never had numbers this bad with independents, and neither has Trump. This is horrible. 5.6%? Stunning. Only 21.4% somewhat approve of the job he's doing. Joe Biden's overall approval rating with independents and third-party voters, non-two-party voters in the state of Georgia, is 27%. That's it. He's under 10% among Republicans and 14.6%, so about 15% of his own party disapprove, as you can see right here. That's why when he hiccups. That's why what you'll see when he goes up against Donald Trump, he's just getting killed. Getting killed. Because Donald Trump kept his votes. These people, the Democratic Party wants a different nominee in 2024. If people mount serious challenges to Joe Biden and he doesn't withdraw, I am confident enough to say at this point, whoever mounts a serious challenge would probably beat Joe Biden, a sitting president. It would be the first time a sitting president was defeated for his party's nomination in a very long time. Look it up. This is not viable. All right, Republicans again have that 38 to 29 point lead among independents. But folks, when your president has a 27% approval rating with this group of voters, they're not going to win them. Maybe they can hope to split these voters evenly and Republicans wind up carrying independents by like 5 to 8 instead of some devastating double-digit number. Because again, Republicans are getting about 4.9%, and Democrats are getting about 4.5% base crossover. But the someone else category with Republicans is quite lower, as you can see. And there are more Republicans who remain undecided. It's just, this is going to be a very bad year in the state of Georgia for Democrats. Which is why, you know what, before this governor's poll comes out, I do just want to say there was clearly a group of Republican primary voters who believe that Brian Kemp is a stronger candidate. And I will just say this off the bat. Honestly, Laura, it's more than just David Perdue. Like, we didn't poll people like Taylor against Abrams, excuse me. But it's again, it's such a bad year that I think really It doesn't matter whether it's Purdue or Kemp. It doesn't matter. And honestly, when you look at Kemp's approval rating, you're going to see who really has a problem with base. And in the end, it's a massive number of Democrats. We found that again, who say they approve of the job he's doing. But ladies and gentlemen, they're not going to vote for Brian Kemp. So his polling lead is somewhat misleading. Again, by education, if you look at Biden among education, he's even fallen now with postgrads. It's amazing when basically 4 in 10 or more in every single field disapprove of you, or strongly disapprove. Even these are supposed to be your voters. That would be like, listen, to draw an equivalent here, or to draw an accurate apples to apples comparison, I should say, this would be the equivalent of working class white voters disapproving strongly of Donald Trump. That's how much trouble Joe Biden's in. All right, generic ballot is just Republican across the board. It gets closer within some groups, but it's just Republican across the board. And this can happen in the state of Georgia, by the way. Has happened before in Republican years. By income, Republicans are only, 40.4. They're trailing 41.2 for Democrats to 40.4 for Republicans among people who make under 30,000. That 30 to 50,000, they're trailing by 2 points, rounded 45 to 43. They lead with everybody 50 and up. This is a little strange. Keep that in mind and compare that to the presidential matchup when you see it later today. You have that is a big deal. It's more than just education too. Employment. I think we all know how that's going to go. These parental rights issues as we get closer to the election. Yes, one or more school-age children under the age of 18, Republicans have not made. We are not seeing there what we saw in places like Virginia. If you're a parent, but all your kids are 18 or older, meaning you're an older parent, you're almost a 30-point group for Republicans. But Republicans are only leading by 1 point among parents who have children in school right now. One or more 18, but not yet school age, is actually a Democratic group, much like what we had seen, by the way, in Virginia. Okay? There's no cause or issue that is showing, that is making that case. Like, Republicans haven't had the chance to really make that case. Democrats carry single people. They carry separated people. That's typical. Divorced here is going for the Republican candidate, which is a little bit surprising. That's not typical. Widows are about even, while actively married couples, are a 20 plus point, margin for Republicans. Religion is a big deal in the state of Georgia, by the way. The Protestant is still the biggest religion, but Democrats, when they have good years, do better with the Catholic vote. The problem is they have lost so much support among the Hispanic community. So a big chunk of that, about 10% of that vote, is Hispanic. And they are losing it. So overall, they're losing Catholic vote. Democrats are losing the Catholic vote by about 10 points, 51.1 to 41.3. Nothing surprising here with the Protestant vote. It does go Republican, but this is a big number. Right? Evangelicals, we can look at. By the way, another religion, which includes Jewish, Muslim, and just other religions. That's the one religious group that's going for Democrats. No religion is also going for Democrats, which I don't think should surprise you. Evangelical, as you can see, a huge lead for the Republican candidate, over 30 points. All right, by area type, this is why it matters with what Laura was saying. The suburban area is obviously a better area for Joe Biden. So if it was a little bit more rural, it's very suburban here. If it was a little bit more rural, and we did it by county, so sometimes it's just the way it is. But basically, that pulled him to the higher 30s, 37.6 or whatever it was, 37.8. It could be more rural. Not that it could be. It very well could be. And look, I'm not the only one who has done this. We did that with our polling in the runoffs and the special, and we were actually right. And if you looked at the voter analysis in the 2020 exit polls, actually, rural was quite high compared to the exits. So again, rural Republicans are romping it. We went over this already. Urban area is the only one the Democrats are carrying. Region is just such a big deal. Ladies and gentlemen, if they cannot, and look at how much the Atlanta metro burbs are here and the Atlanta metro area. But if Democrats cannot carry this, the Atlanta metro area is not enough. It's just not. Even with Savannah and the coastal South, it's not enough. Which is why you always see coastal and southern regions closer than what you might think or what the exit polls would suggest in most races. That's Savannah. And outside of it. All right. But everywhere else, the Republican North, obviously, it's a romping. The Atlanta suburb margin is significant. It may only look like 5 points, but Republicans have a much, much easier path to 50+1 than Democrats, who are mired in the low 40s in the Atlanta suburbs. Supposed to be their area, their growing area. It's a major problem. That's a big issue. Let me see. Read what Aaron says before we lose it, right? Because it is a super chat, Laura. If somebody bings me with a super chat, get my attention so I don't lose it. And if I do lose it, I'm sorry. It's hard. It really is hard to follow the flow because all the comments are together. You may do that on YouTube, but everyone else's comments are kind of mixed in with it, except for Rumble, and it just kind of flies by.
I found it for you. They're in your private chat area.
I haven't tuned in a long time. Is the abortion issue hurting Republicans at all? No. In fact, this is the case I made the entire week after this draft opinion of Roe. Oh, it's more than Roe. It's Roe and Casey. Leaked. I actually think this is going to help Republicans if Democrats continue to do what they're doing. They're giving them a chance to explain all. The short answer, Aaron, is it is not hurting Republicans at all. All right, but the longer answer I really laid out last week a lot. The pro-choice designation is just not dominant. That's number one. It's not dominant like it used to be in the 1990s. Number two, and check out the polling. I don't know if you follow us on locals but you could definitely see it all over Twitter, everywhere. Get her. And I pumped it out like crazy. The bottom line is pro-choice people support restrictions on abortion. The only thing Democrats are clinging to life here is this group of ignorant people who think that Roe is going to criminalize abortion. That's simply not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. I don't know if, somebody, Emperor Soft Turtle, if you come back and explain what comments you're talking about on Newsmax, I'm not aware of them. So, I'm not sure. But actually, I will tell you this. And he's asking about, do you think Purdue's comments on Newsmax hurt him? I don't know what he's talking about, but I can tell you this. Kemp looked very strong in the beginning of this poll. He fizzled as time went on. So I don't know when those comments were, but it didn't, nothing seemed to hurt. The trend was actually good for David Perdue. The question is whether or not it's going to be good enough. What else we got here? How is Heist doing so poorly? What is wrong with him? He's not in our polling. You'll see. It's close. It's a race. In the primaries. There's a bitter primary right now in Georgia 10. I think Trump did endorse Vernon Jones. Maybe somebody's got to go and look that up. But Mike Collins, who almost defeated Jody Heiss in a primary years ago, ran again. Patrick Witt, who's now running as the insurance commissioner, was in that race, and he moved over. So Vernon Jones jumped in. It's a bitter fight over there. I'm not sure there's any reliable polling that's been going on so far, but there's no districts that, if there's a MAGA candidate nominated in Georgia, they're going to lose. They're going to win. Republicans are going to rout the map in Georgia. I questions like that when does Carla Sands have any shot in PA? Questions like that when I haven't polled a race, I hate to do, because look, you get a situation like we have right now where I'm going to be an outlier in some stuff. I don't mind. I polled it. I trust myself here. I just don't know. I don't know. So look, anybody could probably, with everything going on in that damn race, it wouldn't surprise me if somebody came out in both of those races. It wouldn't surprise me if somebody came out of nowhere, because people are just so fed up with the back and forth with everything else. We'll just have to see, though. We'll have to see. Who is the Barnett question? We'll get to that. Don and I were actually talking about that earlier. We'll get to it. Look, I'd be remiss to say, and I think Don and I will elaborate on this a lot more in the second hour. We don't have all the information. That's just a fact. I wish we did. I can tell you, though, that I found out yesterday that Team Trump did find out a lot of this stuff about Barnett. I don't know why Team Oz chose to clip deceptively edited takes out of videos she had posted to social media, when there is plenty of actual material to go through. And this is how stupid people like Sean Hannity are. I'm serious. Hold on for a second. Let's take this down for a second. Hold on. This is how dumb these relics are. That they thought, and Hannity did this because he's the one who got Donald Trump to endorse Dr. Oz. Donald Trump met with Dr. Oz 3 times. Hannity pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed for Dr. Oz. So now he's invested in this. He thought, this is honestly, think about this, folks. He's supposed to be MAGA. He's supposed to be base. This is how out of touch he is with the real base, especially in a state like Pennsylvania. You thought that hand-handed, as Bannon called it, that's a nice way of putting it. You thought that smear job was going to turn people off? If anything, it had the complete opposite effect. And then if you're going to do that, and there's nothing wrong with the scrutiny that Barnett is getting, some of it's unfair and lies. That video crap, that's lies, that's unfair. But the military record stuff, folks, the professor, adjunct professor, she can't remember the year or two. These are problems. At the very least, they speak to somebody who is just not ready for prime time. But if Hannity was going to even deliver credible scrutiny, you don't then invite the primary opponent of that candidate on to pile on. Fair and balanced would have been to run that smear that he ran and then say, we're going to have Kathy Barnett on now to see if she can't shed some light on this and explain some of this stuff. He says he couldn't get her. I actually believe that. Just talking about personal experience and other people's experience. But fine. Then you don't have Dr. Oz on for some cheap pile on. If your goal was to help Dr. Oz, you heard him. And that's the problem with these relics, folks. They may have the 9 o'clock hours on cable news, but they do not have the heart and soul of the American electorate, no matter how much they think they do. You are clueless if you thought that was going to hurt Kathy Barnett. If Barnett wins on Tuesday, you can thank Sean Hannity. If Barnett wins on Tuesday and loses in November, you can thank Sean Hannity. I am not kidding. I am not kidding. And to pull some crap like that anyway because you didn't do your damn job and vet her before, you thought she was a joke, you ignored her, and then you try some desperate Hail Mary smear. And believe me, folks, I've seen enough that is legitimate cause for concern to know that you did not need to do what he did. Pennsylvania is a show right now. One of the for Republicans, one of the Trumpiest states in the union. It is. Whether he won it or not, it's Trumpy. Donald Trump spends over 4 years making it more Republican, and they do this. Unbelievable. And I think there's a point that needs to be made here. Donald Trump was the Teflon Don. Saying certain things he could get away with. Nobody else has that Teflon. Nobody. Nobody we've seen so far. But unfortunately, he if he was trying again, he did what he thought, because he's a relic. He thought that would work. Like, that may have worked, and Don and I were talking about this. That may have worked back in 2012, it would have worked still, probably, to get you to vote for Mitt Romney. Now, I am not putting Dr. Oz in the same category as Mitt Romney. I'm simply saying those tactics that Fox News Republicans have used in the past, not only would they not work now, you know anything about the Republican electorate, you would know that. Not only would they not work now, it would assuredly backfire. So if you were trying to get Barnett nominated, that is what you would do. All right? I don't envy the voters in the Keystone State. Tell you that. Let me just put it that way. And I will get into more with, like I said, with Don in a bit. I want to save some of that conversation for him. But I did see all the questions, and I knew I wasn't going to be able to get around it today. I knew I wasn't going to be able to. Believe me. But it is what it is, you know. Would Sands pull more votes from Oz or Barnett? That's a great question. And I would honestly even throw in McCormick there. I mean, because he is, look, it is, I was talking to Kurt Schlichter about this. It'd be hilarious if all of this fighting with Oz and Barnett turned off a bunch of, there's a huge number of undecided voters. More than enough that if one candidate has a surge one way or the other, it's over. And McCormick spent a lot of money. He did. He had the lead at one point. It is more than likely that Barnett is very close to her cap. I've seen a lot of just simply incorrect statements about her potential, it's just incorrect. She got clobbered in the one and only election she ran it, in case you guys didn't see. She got crushed. Yeah, so Nathan, let's go back to that. Yeah, I like that. Here, let's pull that back up. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Biden lost. Pennsylvania is a perfect example of Nathan's question, by the way. Biden had done so well against the educated voter, right? He had done so well against them, against Donald Trump, with them, among them, and then pull back some of that working class from Donald Trump, right? That's the working theory here. Bear with me. Well, those working class people are gone. And now he's actually even starting to get hurt among educated people. He's not above in Georgia. He is not above 50% approval among people with a post-grad. They are now in the camp. And by the way, folks, we just polled it. You know this. They were still slightly positive. They are now negative. It's remarkable. It's a big deal. Oh, you can't see it. Hold on. It's a big deal. Even they now have a negative approval of Joe Biden. I doubt that'll be the case nationally, but in a state like Georgia, it is. The eighth one, Laura. What's the eighth one? Okay, let me count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I looked at 7 to be able to see 8. New Jersey, Swamp Fox. Asian voters like being screwed by affirmative action. You must have saw the study a couple weeks ago, didn't you? New Jersey, Swamp Fox is referring to. And by the way, number 8, Laura, is Emperor Soft Turtle about Purdue's comments on Newsmax, which I am unaware of. So I could just tell you that the polling toward the end didn't suggest that anything had hurt him. The trend was actually moving toward Purdue. But anyway, New Jersey Swamp Fox.
I know that.
Did he follow up with what he was talking about? If you get me a clip, I'll run it.
But you covered it, and I wrote that before you covered it. Just saying.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, Asian Swamp Fox. Swamp Fox, New Jersey Swamp Fox, is referring to the study that came out about a week or so ago, maybe 2 weeks now. I'm starting to lose track of time. I'm polling so much. That basically showed who was hurt by affirmative action and what would enlistment rates be if there was no affirmative action, which looks to be in jeopardy by the Supreme Court. This is not a matter of race or racism, okay? It's not. It's just a statement of fact. Black admissions would be almost nil in places like Yale and Harvard. White admissions or Hispanic admissions would go down as well. Non-white Hispanic admissions would, just not to the degree we see with Black and African-American admissions. Asian voters would go up. Whites increase a little, but Asian voters, Asian people going to school in the United States of America are hurt the most from affirmative action, which I found in that study to be rather funny. I did, because it's like they didn't sell it as, go after those damn Asians who take all the education slots. They sold it as going after, white people have an advantage. And that's simply not true. It's just not. Those slots are being taken from Asians. So, as usual, not for nothing, this is a historically true statement. As usual, the stated goal and the reasoning for a progressive policy turned out to not be true. The stated goal of increasing admissions, college admissions, and university admissions for Black and African Americans because the system is systemically racist toward whites. In favor of whites and against them, was not true. And the stated goal isn't true, which was to reduce white admissions significantly to account for that inequality. when in fact, you're robbing those slots from Asians, who I think we could fairly say work hard to get those opportunities. Well, the rest of us are pounding the six packs on Saturday night trying to hook up with our girlfriend or boyfriend. They're studying calculus. Is that unfair, Laura? Is that unfair? That's not an unfair statement. White America's gotten rather lazy, actually.
You're absolutely right. And I'm over it. That's where I stand on that position. Sorry, the baby's climbing all over me as I'm trying to talk.
Yeah, I Revo. What can we do to stop the Messiah complex? I'm going to wait for Dawn for that one.
I love
That's a
that
great
question
one.
so much. That's one of my favorites because I claim.
Especially in local elections, Laura. That's a good question. Worried about a bunch of loose cannons jumping in the school board races and taking votes from viable parents' rights candidates, as you should be. As you should be. I'll tell you what could have happened. That is not. And my boy David over there in California 13 is a perfect example. It could have been a more organized situation where the Messiah candidates were identified immediately and removed. Again, not good enough to even mention on the show right now. But in that case, that guy knew that the viable Republican endorsed by all of the base activists, all of the only ones who didn't endorse him were the donor class. He had no reason to jump in that race other than to siphon votes away from David Giglio. He had ran around before attempting to convince other people to get in the race to siphon votes. We did poll Utah, actually. I mean, a lot of people say, hey, can you poll a state? You have any thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars it costs to poll. When we do the national poll and we put the public polling project up, just for people, because I saw this one's now Utah. There was one about Texas before. There's simply not enough. I mean, CD Media owns a news organization in Georgia. So they have, their viewers want to poll Georgia. And when it comes to the public polling project, we're lucky to be able to fund a national poll out of the public's pocket right now. It's a lot of money. We did vote for Secure the Vote poll for Secure the Vote in Utah, which was it didn't make it because of what you're talking about, Mitchell. All of the rhinos in that state, a supposedly deeply red state, filled with rhinos. When presented with the polling evidence, quoted 5-turd fake as a reason why they shouldn't pay attention to it. That's how rhino they are in that state. Which was very interesting because it's a state that has had mail-in voting for a very long time, yet absolutely felt that convenience should be put after integrity and that it should have been limited. Vote by mail should have went back to being limited.
This one's funny.
This is funny. I'm so glad I don't have to vote in PA. How about everyone in PA write in Sean Parnell? That's hilarious. I mean, that's what happened here, folks. I mean, Sean Parnell was the consensus Trumpy candidate. He was perfect for the Senate race in the state of Pennsylvania. They knew that. So they did the scummiest Karl Rove maneuver you can think of, which is apparently now going to people's ex-wives and getting them to perjure themselves, getting them to accuse the Trumpy candidate of abusing their children like they did to Eric Greitens in Missouri. Goes back to the Messiah complex thing. Some of it is like, it is Messiah complex, like that total joke of a candidate who decided to just be a thorn in David Giglio's side. I mean, that's the best he is. That's Messiah complex fully. But there's also an element of money and power here, like Don always talks about, and he's going to be on in a second. Money and power. If people are boxed out, if Karl Rove is boxed out, if some big donor in the Central Valley is boxed out and doesn't think David is going to represent his crooked ass interests in Congress, then he puts on the Messiah cap. Karl Rove was so used, and it's not just him, it's all these establishment people. They were just so used to having full control. All of the consultancy fees go to them. All of their friends, their polling friends, get the contracts. They're so used to that just being default. De facto happened. You're running as a Republican? Karl Rove's going to make some money out of it somehow. Or his friends. Now they're faced with a situation where that's not the case. MAGA candidates, outsiders, insurgents, they're going and getting their own consultant class.
Karl Rove needs to just be quiet because
There's Laura.
Always has to give articles about you were right. Comments on articles about you being right.
This and the last one in the Wall Street Journal. Oh, there was really, that wasn't a real victory for Trump in Ohio. Okay, sure it wasn't, Carl. Sure it wasn't. Does Megyn Kelly need to hold your hand again and walk you to the decision desk so you don't have a heart attack on national television? Freaking joke. Anyway, I see it's 12:59. Let's take the break. When we come back, we'll have Don. All right? But yeah, just keep in mind, I wish I could poll every single state, guys. I wish I could, but it is not feasible. All right. It's hard enough getting that national poll. We have a lot of really, I'm so glad we're able to launch this weekend because we really have no choice. If we don't, we're going to get behind on certain things that we track annually that we agreed in the beginning of this thing we would ask once a year. We did the trusted institutions and agencies last month, right? Now we have the abortion thing we got to ask about again. Homeschooling is coming up. It probably should be asked in this survey. Next week, the first hearing in Congress on UFOs since 1970. That's up this month. It's going to be a big survey. Big survey. All right. So, yeah, it's important we stay and maintain schedule. All right. So with that in mind, I'm going to take a quick break. We'll be back in like 2 minutes, 30 seconds. Special thanks always to the Bone Band for Bad Habit, by the way. That's what you hear when we're on break. Follow me on Twitter at @peoples_pundit, right? It's all in there. It's all in the video description. Most importantly, if you are not a member of the Locals community or a subscriber on Rumble, go to the People's Pundit Rumble channel, subscribe on Rumble, because you never know when I could get zapped. I just got zapped last week. Eventually, it'll be the final zap. All right. Don knows. I see him in the queue, shaking his head. It's only a matter of time. Yeah, and when you're there on Rumble, you will see the nice little Locals icon right there. You can go check it out, or right below the video, above the description, you see join the community on Rumble. And become a member first if you'd like. See if you like it. You'll see that there's going to be stuff like embargoed polls and early access to stuff you won't be able to see. And maybe that'll, help you make a decision on whether or not you want to become a supporter, which of course we hope you do. All right. I'm going to take a quick break. When we come back, Don Smith from The Don Smith Show and all of your questions. We got a lot. Stay tuned.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette inside this aggressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats is restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Get on a plane and take a one-way ride. Steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear for a night. Just to give into the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
And we're back to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, People's Pundit. Happy Friday. Whoop, whoop. It is May 13th. All right, without further ado, I'm going to bring on Don Smith from the Don Smith Show, all right, to help me out with the rest of this Q&A and to help address more about this stuff in PA and more. But before we do that, Don, why don't I get you to react first of all, as always, thanks for joining the show. What am I thinking?
Hey, everybody. Great to be here.
I'm just getting right in it as always. Don has and we'll talk about this more at the end of the show, but Don has an incredible interview coming up with Clayfish in Wisconsin, my girl. So don't miss that tomorrow at noon. All right. Now, don't miss that tomorrow at noon on the Don Smith Show. Check it out, donsmithshow.locals.com, and also on Rumble, Don Smith Show. All right. I have no doubt it's going to be a great interview. Don, you know a lot about the Walker years. You interviewed Scott Walker a lot. You know him. You got a great relationship with him. You were there for the battle that was the recalls, you know, and Rebecca Clayfish was the first and only lieutenant governor, as we were discussing earlier, to survive a recall election. And she's a warrior, you know, but a likable one, a super likable one, you know, I mean, just really incredible. And did something that I think was really thought to be almost impossible in the state of Wisconsin back then. Yeah. You had the labor unions come after you, Don. Wisconsin is the birth of the labor movement. Mm-hmm. You are in deep crap, and yet she won. She won it. I mean, you know, I don't know if you want to get a little sneak peek on there before we get into it. Then I'll get your reaction to Georgia.
Yeah, so great interview with Rebecca Clayfish, and I've had her on. It'd been a while since I'd had her on, so it was great to have her back on. But yeah, a lot of people don't realize that the recall election wasn't them combined. There was a recall against Governor Walker, and there was a recall against Lieutenant Governor Clayfish. So they were two separate things. It could have turned out to where one of them was out, you know. So yeah, she appreciated the discussing that, and a lot of issues in Wisconsin. I mean, ever since then, Tony Evers has been a disaster for Wisconsin. First thing he did was shut down Foxconn. And she was, Rebecca Clayfish was really instrumental in that. Of course, Governor Walker was as well, and former President Trump was as well. But he comes in and he just wipes it out. He wiped out like 11,500 jobs, good paying jobs, moving technology back to America for manufacturing from China. I mean, it was all good stuff, and he just wiped it out. So talking to her about that, I know how passionate she was about that project and how much it bothered her when they just wiped it out. So it was really, really interesting to talk about those kind of things. But she's such a personable person. I mean, she is just such a
Yeah.
nice person. I've had a lot of discussions with Scott Walker off camera where we weren't filming, and he had such a admiration for her and an appreciation for having a real warrior stand behind him all the way. They had each other's backs. They had to, right? It was the whole union
Yeah.
apparatus and everybody against them. So they have such a mutual respect for each other. I'd love to see that. And we're going to probably go ahead and have Governor Walker on the following week here, and we'll get his side of it, of everything as well. But they were such a great team. I think one of the best we've ever had for a lieutenant governor and a governor together, because they were both on the same page on everything. And it was just, yeah, it was a great interview. So I hope everybody can check that out tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, because that's what we were talking about earlier, that when you have that kind of opposition, coming your way, and you're trying to make the
Yeah.
changes, the big changes that Scott Walker was trying to make, if you don't have a solid number two, it's not going to work.
Mm-mm.
And she was a warrior. That's all there
Yes.
is to it. These things over your flying around. Let me get your before we move on to the more controversial areas. Let me get your take on the Georgia poll.
Interesting stuff. Yeah.
And
So
you
it's
know more about what Don knows about more about the results that's been public yet, but go ahead. Don.
I got a sneak peek. So it's good to know people, right? So yeah, I think
I
it's
know a guy.
I know a guy. Exactly. Yeah, it was really interesting to see how this is playing out and where Kemp is at. I think, and we talked about this a little bit before, I think really this is going to be one of those ones that really comes down to voter enthusiasm. Who shows up? And I heard you talking about that earlier, the people who said they were going to vote if they voted early, and if they all did, that's going to be the real question. Who showed up? Who actually voted? I mean, I think Georgia, if you look at like voter fatigue, is probably one of the prime candidates for that, just because we went through 2020, and then of course we had the runoffs for the 2 Senate seats. I think there's maybe a little bit of fatigue there. And I think the Biden thing certainly does not help them, and your numbers are certainly showing that. So I think Democrats are in a lot of trouble in Georgia, I think, number one. But I think as far as Kemp, what happens on the Republican side, it's all going to be about turnout. Who shows up, who votes, right?
And as usual, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution is totally ass backwards, as usual. Their analysis is totally wrong. If there's high rural turnout, Kemp is in trouble. That's it. I mean,
Right.
we're not wrong. It's so conclusive. It's not fun. His strength is in the burbs, and it's among people who have not voted yet, but said they're going to vote early. I mean, that's the dynamic of what's happening right here. I don't know how the hell you could pull it and find any other conclusion. But then again, look at their 2020 polling. Look at their 2021, the runoff and the special. They're always wrong. They can't even analyze what their own poll means. It's just to me, it's like it's unbelievable. How could you think that the Trumpy vote on election day for Purdue in rural areas is not going to be for Purdue? It's going to be for Kemp. How could you, what world are you living in? And I mean, really, there is, and by the way, I will say this: people were concerned about Democrats voting in mass for Brian Kemp. I don't know if I'd say it's in mass, but there definitely are Democrats voting for Brian Kemp in this primary. There are, which is, to me, a little bit, it is what it is. You just have to contend with that. If you're, it's part of the game. It really, I mean, right? It's like whether people like it or not, that old party crossover trick. It's just part of the game, and you have to overcome it. You have to have a good enough campaign where you overcome it, right, Don? I mean, that's the bottom line. And one of the most interesting things, the Hispanic vote. This is yet another state. The Sun Belt is thoroughly on board when it comes to this shift with Hispanic voters to the Republican Party. And if you look at those Hispanic voters who say they're undecided, they don't love Joe Biden at all, man. They don't like him at all. So it's like, I mean, this guy collapsed with Hispanic voters at a pace. Very, very few people have ever collapsed that quickly. Where they're like plus 30, plus 20, and now they're negative 15, something like that. It's or 30, 40, no, negative 10. It's still horrible. It's still terrible. It's not good. And he's only being held up because there are those post-grad people who you can tell are souring on him, but they haven't complete, because I think they just go to their corner. It's not like they're in love with what he's doing, Don. They just run to their corner. Like, well, I don't really like the job he's doing. But I'm gonna say somewhat approve because I don't want to make our guy look bad. So they tell us that. It's like really part of how corny things are. But the generic ballot lead is big for Republicans. There's no competitive district. It's just how are they going to do in the state house elections? For the Washermans out there, even if they would have gotten that pro-Democrat competitive seat in that other version of the map, they'd have lost that district anyway.
Right.
Anyway,
Yep.
It's not enough metro area. It wasn't enough metro area, and they're not. That's the one and only place where they have a lead. They lost the suburbs outside of Atlanta, so it wouldn't have mattered. It's a moot point, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. Yeah, and I think one of the things when you talk about the Hispanic vote, look what happened here this week. So you had Biden come out with the King MAGA King and the Ultra MAGA and all these kind of things, nothing was his fault. This is something I think, and this is just an opinion, is that it's a cultural thing amongst the Hispanic community. Is we talk about conviction, right? And that's really important to them. Own up to things, say, here's what you're going to do. They want to know what you're going to do. What are you going to do to fix this? Blaming Trump, blaming people who voted for Trump, it isn't fixing anything. They want their problem solved. They want their dollar to go farther. And I think the conviction and the lack of willingness to take any responsibility whatsoever, he took no responsibility. I think that hurts him even more, especially within the Hispanic community. But that's just I don't have any numbers to back that up. It's just a feeling I have from just the number of Hispanic people that I've known throughout my life, and that's an important thing to them.
Yeah,
Responsibility.
I think honestly that they're getting, they're just fed up, and it's like this buck pass. Remember the tweet, Don? No, I will promise you this: when I'm president, the buck stops with me. Remember that? What the hell?
I do.
And then he comes out and he's like, this is actually Putin's fault over here with the inflation, and Republicans have no plan for it, by the way. But yeah, it's really just their extremism that's causing all of our issues.
Yep.
No one's going to buy that crap. No one's going to buy it.
And there was something that happened in that press conference too that I think is important to point out. He started out with, and this is how off track these guys are in their messaging as far as coordinating it. So he starts off with, they don't have any plan. So where's their plan? They don't have any plan. And he ends with attacking Rick Scott for his plan. I wonder how many people actually did you guys all catch that, right? So he starts out, so in the same thing, he starts with, they have no plan. So you got to go with us because they don't even have a plan. And then he ends with, look at how crazy their plan is. Which one is it? It can't be both.
Which one is it, man? I think too, some people are asking about Illinois. I think that I think I saw Steve Cortez put something out. I'm pretty much I think he nailed it in the state of Illinois, guys. You're talking about Severino in Illinois 10. I think that Steve is right on the money there, and then also Pritzker's opponent in the gubernatorial election. If you're going to have a chance in a state like Illinois, it can't be a traditional Republican. And we saw that with Bruce Rauner, who came out of nowhere. Of course, he was defeated, but why? Why, Don? Because he campaigned as a different kind of Republican and then turned into your very textbook establishment kind of rhino, raise taxes, those taxes disproportionately, a lot of his policies disproportionately hit people who didn't have any money. I mean, he did exactly what he campaigned on not doing. Went to Chicago and other urban areas, basically told these values voters, you vote Democrat all the time. Give me a chance. Give me one chance. And he built these relationships up with these people, and they did give him that chance. But he did it. It kind of was a very Trumpy campaign before there was a Trump. Then he just governed like a traditional rhino, and he got killed. So I think Cortez's argument that he made this week is valid, which is, first of all, he did way better in that congressional election than anybody thought he could do as a Trumpy candidate, as an America First candidate. So I think you look at a state like Illinois, the only way you're going to make inroads in a state like that, which is more African American than the other Midwest countries, states, which is what makes it more difficult for Republicans. If you're going to do better, it's got to be America First. It has to be. Regular Republicanism hasn't won that state in forever.
One of the things that's really changed in politics, so, I mean, with what you do with your polling, things changed, right? And you adapted to it. So you adapted to it and created a new system, a new way. Things change. And so here's one of the biggest changes that's going on right now. So you talk about like whether it's Kinzinger or, Rauner or whatever. It no longer is the case that you should run a campaign. So you're in the primary, I'm going to run it this way, and I'm going to run on these things. And then, but when I get in the general, I'm going to move to the left, or I'm going to move to the right, or that doesn't work anymore it's because of what we're just talking about here with the conviction. People, that's what people want. They want a leader that tells them right up front. Otherwise, it's a bait and switch, right? Come and get this TV, and they've got one of the TVs in stock because they want you to come in and go, oh, we already sold that one. So, but here's a bunch of other TVs you can get. That doesn't work anymore. People want somebody who stands for something and that follows through with it, not changes their campaign to adapt to, now I can get more people over here. I talk a lot about every day as a candidate, you should be looking to get points. That's not the way to do it. You don't run a primary campaign this way and then go, okay, now I'm going to go over here and do this. Everybody kept waiting for Joe Biden to do that during the general election. Remember, he was all of a sudden he was going to move to he tried it and it was a joke. It's not authentic. People want authentic. And so you've got to, when I get candidates that say, hey, okay, so here's what I'm going to do. My plan is to run this way in the primary. And no, no, I highly recommend you do not do that. Pick your positions. You've got to believe those positions first of all. Pick your positions, stick to those positions,
to be believable,
and then follow through when you get elected, and people will love you. If you don't do that, you're gone.
Yeah, and with Severino, right? He starts off that article. He says, Democrats take the northern suburbs of Chicago for granted, and this message really does, appeal to these people, and you just can't change that message. You can't do it. You're not authentic immediately. People see right through it. And you're asking them to go with the devil they don't know, maybe, over the devil they do know. So you have to come across as having conviction. And by the way, somebody who is viewed as basically, or was by the media viewed as unelectable, Majewski did great in the precincts outside of Toledo. He is unabashedly America First as it comes, and in Ohio 9. And how did he beat Teresa? He beat her by doing well in those areas outside of Toledo that people didn't think he had a prayer in. It's amazing. It's just amazing. It's how backward, Don, their thinking is. Maybe because things do change, but they don't. Their mindsets never do. They're always, and then when they do, they're like force, if they ever do. This is not that they never change, but they are resistant to those changes. And then when they finally decide, it's always like 2, 4, 6 years too late. Like, you're Florida now. You know what I'm talking about. Hillsborough is the battleground county. It was the battleground county for 15, 16 years when it wasn't. Hillsborough County was the battleground, the bellwether county when Bush ran against Gore and when Bush ran against John Kerry. But by the time Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton come along, it's Pinellas, and they're behind on the ball there. And Donald Trump is losing Hillsborough, and Fat Frank Luntz comes out and says the race is over because he's down in Hillsborough County. And no idea what he's talking about. Meanwhile, Trump was romping it in Pinellas, which was obviously the better microcosm, because Hillsborough over those time periods had gotten much too Puerto Rican and liberal. And, to be a bellwether, it was not reflective of the entire Hispanic population. So that was more Pinellas, where you had a combination of a more diverse Hispanic population and white working class. So it was a much better bellwether. Then Pinellas By 18, Ron DeSantis wins. People like me and a few others, Barnes, making the case. No, you can lose Pinellas as a Republican and still carry it because of the changes in South Florida and in the Space Coast. They just didn't. They were behind. And then, of course, Joe Biden wins Pinellas by 200 votes with all of those votes cast. He only wins it by 200 votes. He was supposed to carry it by like 11 points, if people don't remember. All right. And Donald Trump wins the state of Florida by like a historically large margin. Even though he lost Pinellas because we're 2 to 4 years behind. And there's just no way you can give accurate or good commentary, Don, if you're that slow. You just can't be. The world changes, tactics changes, messaging changes, demographics change, political coalitions change, and that's it. Let me ask you this. I gotta throw you in here. Somebody did say though, for Don and Rich. Let me just make sure I find it here.
Let me just add something. Let me add something.
Yeah, go ahead. Well, I look, absolutely. Yeah.
So what you're talking about there? I mean, we look at the changes that happen within like a state, for example. If you want to change the demographics, you want to change the voting makeup of a state. Just put in. Let's take Georgia. Put in 3 horrible candidates, 2 horrible senators, and a horrible governor, and you can change. And look what was happening to Georgia going into 2020, right? And now all of a sudden, boom, now they're coming back the other way. I mean, you could say the same thing in Florida. We had Charlie Crist here for a while, and he kind of pretty much damaged the brand. He was he was the most conservative governor in America. He was labeled that at one point in time. Look at him now.
And he was very popular when he was, by the way.
So look what was happening to Florida. Florida was, we're going pink. Uh-oh. You get somebody like Ron DeSantis, conviction, does everything he says he was going to do, stands his ground, even though people say, well, that's going to hurt you with this group, that's going to hurt you over here. Look at him. Look what's going on to the entire state of Florida right now, right? So if you want to change a demographics, just put in some crappy candidates and have them, run things for a while, because elections do have consequences, and they have consequences also in the makeup of the electorate in a state.
Which brings us to the bomb of the day, to the question of the day. And actually, before we get to PA, the first part of somebody's question, because it was 2-part and it's totally unrelated. Let's do one first. If Russia defeats Ukraine by late summer, what does that do to the November elections? That's a great question. I think I'm not sure that the outcome can help Democrats in any way, but I think one outcome could hurt them more than anything else. So I think if Russia defeats Ukraine and gasses to the moon, everyone's going to be pissed. They're going to be pissed. But that's why Republicans shouldn't have sent them $40 billion. I mean, this is so stupid. They're so dumb, it hurts my brain, Don.
Yep.
Go ahead, take it.
No, yeah. I mean, I think.
What do you think?
I think there's so much going on here in our country right now, so many issues that we have. And I get that this would be a convenient distraction to move over to that stuff for Democrats. I think people are just like, when it's Ukraine, Russia, here's my feeling, and I think maybe a lot of people feel this way. I feel bad for the Ukrainians that are going through some of these things. I feel bad for some of the Russian people, because I'm sure there's some suffering going on as a result of all this stuff with them too. But this is not our deal. This is $40 billion. We've got homeless people all on the streets. These people get driven by on their way to Congress every day by homeless people everywhere, living in parks, living in cardboard boxes in the wintertime. We've got problems here in America. And this is helping the Republicans, especially the America First, because I think a lot of people, even if you're on the left and you hate using that phrase, you're going to say, let's take care of America first. And then maybe we can worry about these, but let Europe deal with it. That's their issue. It's got nothing to do with us. We keep inserting ourselves further and further into it. And I don't want this to be lost. Every time these guys come out and give another package to Ukraine, it's because Zelensky and others in Ukraine are saying, hey, we're not getting anything. Stuff's not getting here. Typical leftists is they come out and they just give you more money then. No, that's not the problem. The problem is the money you've already spent is not getting to them. And I'll say this too. If you're one of those people who, especially on the left, who constantly talk and harp on the military industrial complex, what the hell do you think is going on right now? This is the definition of the military industrial complex. $40 million worth of weapons that have nothing to do with defending America, our freedoms, our soldiers, our kids, nothing. So if you're complained, I don't ever want to hear any of those leftists ever talk about the military industrial complex ever again. Shut up.
That's right. That's right. And these people, Sean Parnell, investing in the downfall of our adversary isn't a good investment. First of all, I didn't know we were at war with Russia, jackass. That's number one. Number two, it seems to me that the Chinese are doing a great job, investing in the downfall of their adversary without selling a single gun, without blowing their budget, without, you know what I'm saying? So it's just such a stupid proposition. And then you have Lindsey Graham. I told you, we had talked about this. We chase away India, but we're going to get Finland in NATO. What the hell is wrong with these people? We're not getting battle-hardened Northmen.
Yeah, this
Jesus.
is crazy. Yeah. Lindsey Graham, I heard an interview the other night, and he's going, so this is why we need to do this. And it's why we need to get more involved. And he goes, and for all you hand-wringers out there, hand-wringers. You mean the people that don't want to send their kids over to a bloody war between Ukraine and Russia that we have nothing to do with? You mean the hand-wringers worried about not being able to get baby formula? How about the hand-wringers who can't go to the grocery store and afford to buy all the food that they want to buy? How about the hand-wringers who got to fuel up their gas, their tank? I mean, yeah, hand-wringers, really? That's where you're at with this whole thing? So Lindsey Graham's another one. Shut up. Just shut up. They need to get rid of this guy. And anyway,
Trump should never have saved him. And by the way, you know who else helped save him? Sean Hannity.
Yep.
Sean Hannity.
He still does.
I just want to add real quick, though, because Don brought up the baby formula crisis. I mean, I just have a quick question. Pregnant women, don't they have breast milk? I'm just saying.
Oh, well, not everybody.
Like, they want to make this such a huge crisis, but there are women that have breast milk. It's not, I understand for those who don't, that can't, like there are certain issues sometimes that come up, but I'm so over this, the whole Roe v. Wade thing. And then all of a sudden, like, oh, well, there's no formula for the babies. Guess what? Female anatomy.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I'll be honest with you, Laura. At first, I didn't know where you're going with this. I get what you're saying now. Okay.
John brought up the formula crisis.
There's also plenty of formula. There's also plenty of formula at the points of entry at the border for people who don't belong here, and they are stacked. By the way, and by the way, this is another thing. I don't understand this. Why are WIC customers not subjected to the item limit? What the hell? What does it matter if you use WIC to get your baby supplies or whether you pay with money? So I don't understand what makes someone who's on assistance a priority over people who have kids who are not on assistance. I'm sorry. Look, and I get the social safety net. I am not one of those guys. I don't think people should be on it forever. And I don't think you should be able to pump out, 5 kids and have WIC pay for all of your damn, milk and peanut butter and whatever else. But at the same time, what makes my baby any less important, Don? I don't understand that at all. Do you get that? I don't understand that.
It's the society that this is a society that's being created, right? It's
just victimology, right?
It's
just
but it's also about this. It's about whenever they talk about equal rights or they want to put everybody on the same level playing field and all those kind of terms that they use, this is always about special rights. So that's why there's no limit. That's why people are getting handed formula at the border. I guess if you're an American parent at this point and you really need formula, you need to go across the border and then come back across and they'll hand you some. I don't know. This is the messaging that needs to come from the right now. We are literally in an America first versus an America last election. Yeah. That's exactly what's going on here. And they need to be pounding that every day because people get that. They understand that and they go, well, yeah, I didn't know about that's not right. Oh, yeah.
That's what David's been doing all week, man. America last, because it's low-hanging fruit.
It is.
What do you mean you're going to do this with energy? You're cutting back on this. What the hell are you talking about? We're going into the summer driving season in a month.
Yep.
You idiot. $40 billion to Ukraine. By the way, what did Mark Levin? Robert tore him a new one over it. Putin something. He's got a new phrase now. Why is Mark Levin and other so-called conservatives dying so badly to stuff Adam Schiff's friends, their arms-dealing friends, with $40 billion worth of our great-grandchildren's money? Because at this point, stop saying your grandkids' money, because we're well beyond that generation having any prayer of paying that debt. Well beyond. We're into great-grandchildren or beyond at this point, folks. This infuriates me, Don.
Mm-hmm.
It is one of the most corrupt countries in the world. What Western values do you think you're promoting in Ukraine, where they ban the opposition party, they blacklist or remove from the air independent, non-state media, where they put the oppositions in jail like Joe Biden, where they murder civilians? And I know a certain streaming channel doesn't want me to keep saying that, but I don't really give a damn. We paid for that. Ukraine didn't have the money to fund that genocide. We did it. Why are they? They ignore that. They refuse to answer, and they just throw Putin. What was his latest? Barnes, I gotta find it. Barnes was like, look at the war whore, he's like, there's Mark again, whoring for Warren, but good for him, because that's exactly what he's doing. I mean, as always, these people have never met a damn war that they didn't like. Don, I just don't understand. This benefits those that you spend your entire show criticizing. Do they not understand that we're giving money to their cronies? Do they not understand you can't bitch about Hunter Biden at Burisma and send them money?
Mm-hmm.
And they're lying about it being humanitarian. Nancy Pelosi, feed the world, feed the children, the book of Matthew. That's not $40 billion to feed anybody. Mm-hmm. That is lethal aid. Yeah, there's some humanitarian in it, Don, but the vast majority was not. It's lethal aid. It's gun running money. That's going to end up in the pockets of Alexander Vindman's friends, Joe Biden's son's friends, Joe Biden's brother's friends. What the hell is wrong with these people? And they never address it. That just drives me. How could you not? How could you just ignore it?
They all hated Donald Trump's foreign policy, right? Where he was like, why are we at all these bases? Why are we funding all this stuff? Why are we funding South Korea's defense? Why are we funding Japan's self-defense? Well, Germany, why are we doing this? This doesn't make sense. That drove those guys crazy. They were like, this guy ain't good. Lindsey Graham has been working on this war that's taking place right now for several years. I've shown the videos, him and his good buddy, Mr. John McCain, over there, because they thought they were going to get Trump to get involved in this and ramp this thing up. And boy, we're going to have war. They just want war so bad. He's not going to. Mark Levin's not going to war. I don't think his kid's going to war. Lindsey Graham's not going to war. They're not going to war. They're sitting here. So it's like the War Pigs, right? The old Black Sabbath song. It's that. Just listen to the words on that. But they're not going anywhere. But this is so that for the military industrial complex side of stuff, this is that. And certainly they probably got their hands on all this stuff. But I want to say one more thing. This stuff's not sitting on the shelves in all these places. So they can spend all the money in the world. They just keep, every time they come out and they say, well, we're not getting anything. You guys aren't really getting it to us. They come out and tell us, oh, it's a record time that we got it to you. And then they just throw more money at it. There's manufacturing time involved in all this stuff. And if they can ramp it up that quick, then somebody needs to ask this administration, what about the baby formula? What about this? What about all these shortages?
I'm so glad you brought that up. According to Mark Levin, you're just a Putin ass kisser.
I know.
Who say that we don't. There it is. I found. I had to find this. Who say, why don't we focus on the baby formula crisis rather than Ukraine? The baby formula problem predates the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and it's not about federal funding, but government incompetence. Damn fools.
Ooh. Yeah. I'm sorry if anybody. I've never been a Mark Levin fan, so. And he completely lost me. His voice just drives me crazy. But anyway, he completely lost me when he did the anti-Trump stuff, and just like Glenn Beck did, and Ben Shapiro and a lot of others. But yeah, this guy, he's one of the warmongers. I don't know. I don't know why these guys are. Is it a power thing? Is it? I really don't know what it, psychologically what's going on with these guys. But they want war.
I'll tell you what, Ryan Gerdusky, I think he had a good reaction to it right here. He is the definition of a boomer brain, living in a time gone by and completely delusional. We will be a better country the day he's no longer on radio. You know, and I remember, let me just give everybody pieces of friendly advice. If you're new to the scene and you don't know him that well, listen, if you wrote a book, don't send it to him. All right. Don't send him an advanced copy of your book, hoping that he may give you a review or something, or maybe have you on, because you may, let me just end it there. I don't want to rehatch this fight. I'm just warning everybody, do not give Mark Levin an advanced copy of your book. Okay. That is a bad idea. All right. Especially if you're, you know, relatively a nobody who doesn't have the platform to be able to show the goods. All right. So
let me add something. You know, we missed Rush Limbaugh. And Rush Limbaugh was kind of the one that kept everything together. He kind of kept, because people they didn't want to cross Rush, and Rush was like,
he was the glue, man.
He was the glue that held it all together. So Hannity acted a little differently back then. Levin acted a little differently. They all admired Rush Limbaugh, and they didn't want to get on the wrong side of him. So we really miss Rush Limbaugh at this point, because there's a lot of chaos right now within the conservative media.
All right, we got to get to question 2 here on this, Don. If Barnett wins Tuesday, does she lose in November? We have to address it. The elephant in the room.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. And I know a lot of people want answers. And I can only say from my part, and you and I talked a little bit ahead of time, because this is a touchy subject,
trying to be fair. Trying to be fair.
So I've gone through a bunch of material. I went through the clipped up video where they did the hit piece on
that
her.
Was garbage.
And I've gone through some of the full length things, but I haven't had a chance to go through everything yet. I'm still waiting for some information. Full disclosure, I actually was in the process of getting her on my show for this Saturday just before all this stuff blew up. So they responded back. We were setting everything up, and then everything broke loose, and it was like, holy cow, what's going on here? So it's gone dark since then. I've had no communication with their campaign, and that includes asking for some things. And I know you're waiting on some information as well. So we're doing our job of vetting all this.
Fine.
But what I hate is just the process of this, the procedure, because somebody knows. You and I have both worked on campaigns. We vet people, and we do it very thoroughly. You got somebody like Dr. Oz coming in, lots of money. I guarantee you he's got dirt on everybody, and you got stuff that you call in the can, right? So if I ever need this, I'll put this out there. This is something, though. Here we are. She finally starts surging up in the polls. Now she's a problem. She wasn't a problem before, so everybody just shut up and didn't say anything. If you've got something, put it out there right up front. Just be upfront with people. Don't hold it back and go, okay, I'm just going to smack this person now because they're taking away my limelight and all this. So I just hate the whole process, the whole procedure of how we do this. This is where we shoot ourselves in the foot, and we do it over and over again. It's like the Three Stooges or something.
Regardless of whether she was the top tier candidate, she ran for Congress, got crushed. Ran before. She should have been vetted by now. And Hannity's all mad, but the truth is, Sean, your team should have done their damn job by now. This shouldn't have been up really to Don Smith and the People's Pundit. This should have been on them, especially if he had such a bone in the fight to push Dr. Oz on the former president. I will say this: I know that they did vet her, when deciding whether they would endorse her. And they found a lot of the stuff that Don and I now, are trying to sift through to find out what's legit, what's not. The video thing was garbage. That's what that backfired badly on them. And I don't understand why they did that, Don, because there is material that is credible and worth focusing on. The fake stuff really just pushes people into their corner. So now, even if you were to come up with something that's legitimate and credible and that people should be concerned about, you have now hardened people. and they get into like an almost cult-like posture where nothing you show them is going to change their mind. So that was a very, very, very bad mistake. But because it's so stupid. I mean, it really was so stupid because there have been things that I have seen that, all of the video in that clip you're referring to, you've looked at it, I've looked at it, it's all taken out of context completely. Yet I found other ones that were not, like references to white people not holding George Washington up on a pedestal like we do. There were some white people behind me and they need to change their thinking about George Washington kind of thing. Like, these are questions that in a Republican primary, you should be able to answer. This is my concern. And from what I understand is that Team Trump did not want to put stuff out because they did want to, and you saw it in his statement the other day, by the way. They wanted to give her a chance to explain some of this. Not like some of it can't be explained. It's just that even if it can, they're not doing a good job of it. And I'm going to play a perfect example. It's completely fair to do this. Greg Kelly is a veteran. I'm a veteran. You're a veteran. The minute I saw the bio on the website, my eyebrow went up because you don't get names of things wrong, folks. You just don't. All right. Unless not if you have 7 years of service under your belt. I don't know how you refer to branches incorrectly or branches that don't exist, or OCS is officer candidate school, not officer candidacy school. And I understand people who don't know about the military and haven't served in it. You're like, oh, that could be a simple error. It's not. When you're in the military, you don't make errors like that. All right. Especially not multiple ones. Armed forces reserve. There's no such thing. And yeah, so they get the 265 to Jack. But there are legitimate things people were asking. Don, if you're a reserve, it's possible you don't get a DD-214. I'm trying to explain this, how this works to everybody. But when you go to your initial training, AIT, OSA, whatever it may be, you are placed on active duty status. If you are on it for 90 consecutive days, you trigger a qual for a DD-214. That's why basically everybody has one. All right. If you were in a position to qualify for OCS, first of all, from the Army regs I read yesterday and been reading for 2 days, you can't even apply for it unless you're in active duty status. So, or you'll be put on it when you do. So it's possible she was touting something that she didn't complete, because most 2/3 don't make it through OCS. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It just don't tout it then. It's like, somebody trying out for SFAS and failing, not getting selected or quitting. And yeah, good, congratulations. You're with 90%, or actually it's like 70 in mine, but whatever. It's not something that is just easily a mistake being made. And what my concern is, even if she can explain all of this, you have to be ready for prime time. Don Fetterman is no joke. You have got to be ready for prime time. And I'm going to play this. It's not a hit. It's legit concern of what I'm talking about here. Okay. And he changed his name to adjunct professor Greg Kelly. And I even corrected Greg. All right. Because there is no mysterious Judson University. Judson University is a real place. It was founded in 1914 in Chicago, Illinois. It labels itself an evangelical college, which it started as Judson College just 8 years ago. It was changed to Judson University. But just listen, and then we'll. And by the way, they label themselves, Don, as evangelical and Christian, but there's a lot of woke people that have gone there, and a lot like their visitors are wokesters and rhinos. I mean, they are, and you guys can go look it up if you don't believe me. All right. You'll see it on the wiki, for crying out loud. You don't even have to do an in-depth search. But here, listen to this, and then we'll talk about what I'm saying.
And I told your campaign. Thank you. Of course. And I told your campaign I'd ask you these questions. So where were you an adjunct professor and when?
In Judson University.
And where's that, Kathy?
That is in Illinois.
Okay. And when were you there?
I don't remember the time.
Okay. And
the time.
Okay. And then you mentioned that you.
That's enough. And that's it anyway. Don, how do you not remember the time frame of when you were a professor, an adjunct professor in a university?
Yeah, that's tough.
Come on, guys. This isn't an attack. It's a legitimate question. You want the Senate, Republicans? Do you want the Senate? That's it. It's not personal. It's just I don't, Don, you ran in the Congress and you lost. So you decided to run for Senate. You didn't expect attention. Like, you didn't have a plan. Don, you're a communications guy. Help me out here. What I'm saying is, you are a communications guy. You know what I'm talking about, man. You have to know this stuff.
You have to know it. And you have to be ready to answer these questions. And, I'm going to go back to this because I think my biggest problem with all of this is just the timing. Everybody comes out of this damaged. Nobody wins on this in this whole situation.
That's the worst part about it.
Time is short now. And I also think there's an element here where we're not even talking about this. If she didn't overperform in the debate, that's the bottom line. She did a great job of the debate. Nobody expected that was going to happen. So now the knives are out. But these are legitimate things, and we do have to look at this. So I'm not in any position right now, and I think we're in agreement on this. As far as this is not a character judgment. This is a procedural thing, and she's got to do her thing.
It's procedure, right, Don. Yeah. It's procedure. That's what I'm trying. Yeah. I'm so glad you used that word, because everyone always wants to talk about character, and then they want to throw like something like, oh well, Oz is vetted. He supported this. It's not a talk. This is not about Dr. Oz. Dr. Oz knows about we all know about his flip flops, and you have to make a determination on whether or not you believe him. That's not the point. This is basic procedural stuff. Every campaign goes through. She is running for the position of a United States senator. You can't not know where you went the hell when you had whatever tenure, not tenure, but when your tenure was at a college. You can't not be able to explain how you make 10-year claims. The documents are 7. I mean, you have to be able to do this. The Democrats are going to be vicious. And when I'm talking about, you brought up actually before, all of these gains made toward the Republican Party in Pennsylvania, when you screw up an election cycle, you can absolutely disrupt the change in voting behavior, that trend in voting behavior. You can stop it dead in its tracks, ladies and gentlemen, because now you have made, they were thinking Republicans, they were giving them a new look, and they were party of this, but now they're going to be associated as the party of that. And that is the way this works. All right. So people really have to understand that. And it's not personal. It's nothing. Don, how many times have you and I talked about Dr. Oz and how miraculous he went from being like this to that? It's not about this, though, is not about Dr. Oz. I'm sorry you don't have a good choice in Pennsylvania. It still doesn't mean commit suicide. You know what I'm saying? Like that it is what it is. But honestly, here's something really going to be unpopular. There are people that did have this, Don, like you said before, and they didn't say anything for weeks. For weeks.
Yep.
Weeks.
And that's the problem I have with it. And not just didn't say anything for weeks, still haven't. They really still haven't given us what is the crux of all this. The biggest, I guess, issue right now, aside from the obviously talking about the George Washington thing, I thought that was a bummer, or disturbing a little. But also, you can't talk about banning a religion. That's not, you're gonna get clobbered on that one. So that I had a problem with that. But we've all, it's not like Donald Trump came into his situation and everything was perfect and there were no issues and no information or no embellishments even. I mean, there were, let's be honest about it. But they've had that information. I know this as somebody who works with an America First candidate. You know this as well. The team at Trump headquarters, they vet these people very thoroughly. Yeah. They have all this information.
They had it. They did have it.
They had it.
Confirmed they had it 2 days.
But they didn't think they were going to have to use it, right? So, and that's the procedural thing that right now I have
it struck me, man. It struck me as Trump kind of liked her and hoped that she would be able to explain it. Remember, guys, he met with Oz 3 times. 3 times. And Oz did not get the endorsement until, might have called it a 4th meeting because he didn't get it after the 3rd one either. The president obviously stepped back and said, all right, I'm weighing the options here. You know what I mean?
And that's not normal. That's not normal for him to have that many meetings.
For Donald Trump.
Yeah.
No, it is
usually
not.
a one and done. One and done, maybe
one and
two.
done, bro. Yeah, he's a good judge of character. He's a one and done most of the time, right? Let me see. Who is this guy? Bring him forward. Let me tell kind of thing. That's and the guy's been around. I mean, he's going to talk to you. He's going to ask you the questions he knows he needs to ask, and you're either going to give satisfactory responses or you're not, and that's it. And 3 times, it tells you the president struggled with it. That's what it tells you, Don. It tells you that he didn't think Oz was the MAGA guy, and the situation was so bad that he figured he was trying to prevent something. But at the same time, I think we all know, because so many people, and you've interviewed Mastriano, you've talked to him personally. A lot of people worry about him being on the ticket as well, if it's him and Barnett. But if everybody thought Mastriano was going to be such a cataclysmic event, Lou Barletta was a very early supporter of Donald Trump's. I can't help but to think, and I told you this before the show, he loves that record, man. He loves that record. And Lou is a cool guy, early supporter, but has not been a great campaigner, has not been a good political candidate. And all of this could have been cut off from the jump if a month or so ago, more than a month or so ago, Donald Trump, stepped in and said, no, Lou's the guy. Like that. If they were so worried about this stuff. So instead, it's just a show now. At the Republican voters' expense.
And now you've got Melissa Hart, who's dropped out. Now she's throwing her support behind.
She's the latest. She's the latest. That's 3 in 2 days.
Yeah.
Right? 3 in 2 days. White, Corman, right? And now her. So
let me say this, because
the Messiah complex, though. Don, the Messiah complex.
Yeah.
You saw this coming a month ago.
Yeah.
You thought you were going to surge at the end or something? Come on, man.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yep. But I want to say this, because we're talking about how things have changed, like, the polling has changed, the campaigning, the messaging, all those kind of things have changed. But when we talk about, okay, somebody can win the primary, but can they win the general? That has all changed too. I mean, and everybody should remember the 2016 election, right? Remember Donald Trump? I mean, there were polls that said he had a 1% chance of winning.
He was the worst candidate.
How many times were we told that the only candidate that could actually beat Hillary Clinton was John Kasich, right? I mean, no.
Or Jeb. And then they went down the line. Fox News went down the line. It started with only Jeb, then only John Kasich, then only Marco Rubio, only Ted Cruz. It was
as a last resort.
As a last resort, even Ted Cruz polled better than Donald Trump. And it's like, tell me, which Rust Belt state was Ted Cruz going to flip?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there was it was obvious BS.
But this is why we ended up as a Republican Party. I'm a conservative, but as a Republican Party, this is why we ended up with John McCain, which I don't think there could have been any difference in 2008. Nobody was going to beat Obama with coming off the Bush
Not
stuff.
After the collapse.
But
no.
But what did we end up with after him? Mitt Romney. Romney. Why? Because he was the only one that could win the general election. Well, how did he do? Did he win? No, he didn't win. He ran a horrible campaign. He flopped out on the debate that he should have clobbered Obama in that debate, and he didn't. But Donald
got ran over by Candy Crowley, who was a coward.
Yeah. Donald Trump changed all of that. Donald Trump, he was the guy who broke that mold, so we didn't have to end up with, and he was the guy who had no chance of winning the general election. So I just want everybody to remember that. It's a different time.
I just have a question for Don. Like, aren't you tired of voting with what is the best of the worst? Like, isn't that sad where we are today? We are now voting.
That's why I feel bad for the people of Pennsylvania. I do too. I do.
Totally.
I feel so terrible for them because you want my gut, and I don't think it's fair until I poll to make a declaration, but I know what my gut tells me. But at the same time, I hate that argument. We were just talking about that earlier.
Yeah.
I hate that argument. Why? Because in the end, You know, it's more than Mitt Romney. I mean, I could rattle off dozens of candidates that they said would be the better, dozens. Look at what happened with Martha McSally being appointed by Doug Ducey, screwing Kelly Ward over, and then she loses to Kirsten Sinema by like 0.2%. There is without a doubt in my mind without a doubt in my mind that Kelly Ward would have kept every voter Martha McSally had, basically, and that she would have won this voter that we identified in Arizona. We saw it in 2020 as well. Martha McSally couldn't do it. She couldn't make the close with these people. They were largely men, but they were independent, called themselves either moderate or conservative, 30 to 45 years old, worked full time. They were going for Donald Trump by 28 points. Martha McSally split them with Kelly. Same thing we saw in 18. She just couldn't get some of them like McSally. Those people would have voted for Kelly Ward in a heartbeat. They like that kind of that fight. You know what I mean? Otherwise, or they won't vote. Because they're just like, screw them, it's a politician, screw them. I got a job to do, kind of thing. That's who they are. Those kind of people are. Somebody like a Donald Trump or a Kelly Ward, they'll march. They'll take half the day off if they have to go vote for somebody like that. And the media said that Kelly Ward was unelectable. And I that was not true. You remember that was not true. And McSally surged at the end. And actually, I thought she was going to get there, but in the end, she didn't. She just had too long of a way to go. By the way, the internal Republican polling has been abysmal in the state of Arizona. We have been, for 1, 2, 3 cycles, we have outperformed all of these like consultants, the I know a guys, Don, the I know a guys, because people in the party or candidates would come and say, well, what do you make of this? This is what my pollster just gave me, or my early vote analyst gave me, or some crap, something they're getting charged $5,000 a month for, $8,000 a month for, that is like nonsense. Someone's playing with a spreadsheet at home or something. I mean, that's it, and they had Trump down by like 7 points going into 2020. 7 points. That's just incredible. And McSally doing better than Donald Trump and against Kelly. And I'm like, this is totally ass backward. Donald Trump is doing better than McSally, and this is why. And exactly what we thought was happening is exactly what happened. And again, that was because of the electability argument. Doug Ducey came in and used, it's politics, but he used his appointment power to usurp Kelly Ward. And then the entire conservative media, argued that Kelly Ward was not electable. And that was, that's what did her in before that primary vote. And McSally had the incumbency factor, even though it was by appointment. She still managed to get that name recognition from incumbency. And coupled with the electability argument, Ward lost. And that was the worst thing to happen to the Republican Party in the state of Arizona in years. Because it was, in case anybody hasn't noticed, it's all been downhill since then.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and I think a lot of people...
No, he's not, Raymond. Let me just tell you right now. Ohio Predictive, nice guy. No. Look at the track record. Again, look at the track record. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, Don. But, Don, what do you think? Rick Scott, you and I know both liked him a lot, especially post-Irma. He was an incredible governor, totally turned his image around. In the Senate, however, he has not been the man that I expected him to be. And now he, though, I think wants to try to change that. And there is whispers, several questions were asked because they obviously have heard this too. Rick Scott may step forward and challenge Mitch McConnell if Republicans win the majority. What do you think about that, man? Because it's like I feel like I know 2 Rick Scotts.
Yeah. No,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was going to say. But I will say this right out of the gate: I would take him 10 times over Mitch McConnell. I mean, it would be a lot better than that. But he has a hard time getting coalitions behind him, right? So I mean, look at this plan that he put out here recently, and like everybody's running from it right now. So he's kind of a little bit of a lone ranger kind of guy. He puts things out, but he does show leadership. I thought he was a great governor here in Florida.
Fantastic governor.
Yeah, he did a great job. So he would be 10 times better than, or maybe more than Mitch McConnell would be. But I also think that there's other contenders that I would like to see look to vie for a position like that, because we need leadership. I mean, that's the bottom line. We got to get rid of this McConnell stuff and this McCarthy stuff. I mean, you hear the recent stuff from McCarthy, the leaked audio and all this stuff. I mean, this is crazy. We can take back the House, we can take back the Senate, but if we've got this leadership, we've got McConnell and McCarthy in there, almost what's the point? I don't know. So I think Rick Scott, I think he would do all right at it, but I'm kind of with you. There's kind of like, seems to be, he's disappointed me in the Senate as well. I'll leave it at that.
And that's worth addressing. And Laura said I interrupted you before, and if I did, sorry about that. Were you making a point about something and I interrupted before I bring up the Scott? But did I?
Yes, you did.
Saying, Laura?
Yes, you did. He was in the middle of talking, and then you're just like, your ADD kicked in, and you just answered a question in the middle of him talking. So I had to yell at you.
Thanks, Laura.
I'm sorry, Don.
You're got my back.
Yeah, there are 2 gun laws that I disagreed with myself. It's not just one; it was 2 that Rick Scott passed that I was disappointed with. The red flag law isn't a traditional red flag law. It's very weak. There are people that can petition for it, but go and look and see how it's been practiced. It's weak. It doesn't work. It's not that it doesn't work. I'm glad it doesn't work. It doesn't work as intended as a red flag. The bar and the scrutiny is too high. But the other thing was banning 18 to 21-year-olds from owning rifles. We even showed his office at that time all of the data. The problem with 18 to 21-year-olds with gun violence in Florida had nothing to do with rifles. It was because of Parkland. I think he buckled.
Yep.
Rifle violence was nothing compared to handguns. Secondly, if you can be 18 and use a rifle, there's nothing in the Constitution that says that 18 to 21-year-olds are not afforded their Second Amendment right. If they can go and join the military, which many, many Floridians, young men do, it is BS to tell them they can't own rifles. That is nonsense. That was the one thing Rick Scott did. The red flag law I knew was going to be a joke, although I didn't like him entertaining it at all. But that was not a joke. How dare you tell Don, someone who's 18 to 21 years old, can join the military, can serve in a unit, can get his face blown off? How dare you tell him that the Second Amendment doesn't apply to them? They don't even account for any of the violence. It's urban handgun violence in that age group. And we all know what the issue is. Isn't people who want to buy an AR-15, Don?
My whole thing really on that is all the things that you just said, but the bigger issue to me was the caving, right? He did this thing where
yes.
This was in the middle of the David Hogg stuff, and he was running around doing, and these guys will never learn. This is the John McCain thing, right? So he wanted to be the reasonable guy, and let's instead of standing his ground, showing his conviction, saying, sorry, I mean, these things can happen, but these are the laws. It's our Constitution. Let me read it to you, or whatever. He caved because he thought they were going to lighten up on him. He thought they would go, oh, okay, well, at least this guy did something. He seems reasonable. What did David Hogg do? He doubled down. He said, this guy's an idiot. That's not enough. He didn't do it. You will never do enough for these people. You could give them 99.9% of whatever they want, and they'll go, yeah, that's not enough. That's who these people are. They're activists. They're angry. They're always going to be angry. One of the things that he did in that bill that I actually liked was they were saying, okay, if you're coming into school with a backpack, it's got to be a clear backpack.
Yeah,
these guys freaked out. David Hogg was like, "What if you're a woman and you've got your monthly products in there?" And so they don't. Here's the point: these people don't want to solve anything. They want this to remain a political weapon. Same with Roe v. Wade. They just want this to be a political weapon that they can use. You will never satisfy them ever.
And I'll tell you, I see some people from New Jersey in the house where Laura and I went to school. You'd have walked through a metal detector. That's how bad that school was. All right. So you really wanted, and by the way, it was because of guns, knives. You want that was New Jersey at the time. You want to, really try to solve that problem, then, you do something like metal detectors and guards and increase police presence or whatever. I mean, in the end, he caved and took a fundamental right away from a group of individuals who did nothing to deserve it, all because of a crooked sheriff who's a left-wing nutcase, his incompetent police force, and an FBI who ignored intel, a guidance counselor who didn't do her freaking job, and an all-around failure of the whole entire community. All to try to appease a radical, nutcase, spoiled little brat like David Hogg, who, like you said rightfully, will never be appeased. Never. It doesn't matter what you do. It will never be enough for them. You don't give Marxists anything. You don't give them anything, not even an inch. Bump stocks. That was one thing too with Donald Trump that pissed me off. Bump stocks. Again, there were people with like ironclads, like during the second, the ratification of the Second Amendment. I mean, this is nuts. This is crazy.
It is.
This idea that we're just going to strip people of freedom and rights, and it never gets to the heart of the problem, ever. Never gets. And by the way, you really want to stop gun violence? The media ethics could be changed, because all of the studies that we showed over and over again, the FBI, the academia, they've been telling the media this for decades. But the truth is, the media doesn't give a damn, because they like mass shootings. That's right. They like them. They're sick, evil pieces of twisted. They like them. They know damn well, because the FBI and academia have been telling them for years that you create mass shootings. You do, by glorifying people, by repeating the coverage over and over again, by giving them clout and memory and an identity. You're filling that mental illness. You're fueling it. And then there's copyings and all. By the way, the copycat data is disgusting. The mass shootings that happen in that window after an initial mass shooting because of media coverage tend to be way worse than the initial mass shootings, but they don't care, because they like that. If there's, God forbid, a back-to-back mass shooting, they're all over it. They love it, because it's going to help them strip you of your gun rights, but they know that they created that mass shooting. I kid you not, guys. Go to peoplespunditdaily.com, look up, just search in the search bar, mass shootings. They are the antagonist for mass shootings. Everyone knows it, and they don't care. I mean, I don't know. It's all in there. The FBI and universities have been trying to work with the editors and media outlets for years. They don't give a crap. Parkland, the body count, all the better to them. These are evil, evil people. That's the truth.
There's no better clickbait for them than a school shooting.
Absolutely. It's dual purposed. It serves two purposes. It gets them clicks. It gets them ad revenue. It gets them everything that is in their crooked ass business model. Plus, it advances their ideology. It advances their ideology. And by the way, 5-turd fake. They spent 6 months worth of investor money trying to twist the data to make it out to show how Laura's yelling in my ear, to show how gun laws would actually prevent mass shootings, when in fact they didn't. And it had to take a former employee to write an op-ed in the Washington Post to tell everybody what they were doing over there for 6-8 months, trying to skew data. It's disgusting. Let me just make sure I didn't miss anything here. I think we're over on time. I got a poll to get out. What do you think your final thoughts are here, Don?
Yeah, I think I guess
some critical days ahead of us here.
We do. And so, yeah, I mean, Pennsylvania, obviously on Tuesday. I want to say one thing. I've met Doug Mastriano, interviewed him, talked with him before, talked with him after, spent some time with him and his wife as well. I think he's a great guy. So I hope he's already kind of tangled up in all this stuff, because they're trying to pin him together with Kathy Barnett, which, that bothers me too. So everybody, if you're in Pennsylvania right now, I feel bad for you. Like Rich said earlier, I really do, because this is it. It's so difficult, and like Laura was talking about, now you got to figure out who it's the lesser of evils thing, and I really feel bad, and I hate that this happens. This is politics. It's going to happen other places too. You're going to see this, and I just hate that it happens. I feel bad for you guys, but just look at all the information you can look at and just make a decision based on yourself. Don't listen to the Hannitys or the Levins or any of these people. Make your best decision.
Yeah, you got to make
state.
a decision. Yeah,
it's your state, and this is your vote, and they count. Don't let this depress you on the vote. Don't go, well, this is just too convoluted, I'm just not even going to go out. Your vote counts. So do your due diligence, do what you've got. I'm sure we'll provide updates as we get information too. And maybe we'll know more tomorrow when you and I talk, but it's an important vote. Don't let them depress your vote.
Hopefully, Don, I'm serious, because I do think there's some valid criticism, or I think there's some validity to the criticism that the team's trying to run out the clock. And, that's voters deserve more than that. I feel bad for Pennsylvania. I really do, because I've tried to put myself in their position and think, well, what would I do? And it's such a bad decision that I don't even want to entertain the scenario that I would have to make it. So that's how badly I feel for them. Tony Neves, we missed it, but he asked a fantastic question. Maybe we remember this question for next week. Why don't we see conservative rebellion of children from liberal parents like we do for conservative parents and liberal kids? And my answer to that is, like, why do you have conservative parents who have kids who rebel and you don't have it the other way around? And I would say two things about that quick, but I'd like to have a bigger talk about that, because it's a great question. Yeah. I think we do, actually, Don. I think I have quite a few friends who had like flower children parents who did not take care of them correctly and went a completely different direction. Then on the other flip side, I have friends who grew up to be spoiled little brats. They had conservative Catholic parents, yet they're like nutcase socialists who are privileged and think the rest of the world is, for some reason. But that's because of education. Wouldn't you agree? I mean, there's no, if there were more Hillsdales, you'd probably see that, but the right is grossly outnumbered in education.
Yeah, and I think that plays a big part of it. The left
is a great question.
It is. Excellent question. The left has been focused on kids for a long time now. This didn't just start. Yeah. They've been targeting these kids for a long time. They teach you right out of the gate that if you're conservative, that means you're racist, and all the labels. And they talk about these things with these kids all the time. So if you're a conservative kid, so you're younger, and I was conservative when I was younger, and I spoke out, but for the average person, because we're conservative, think about the definition of conservative, right? So you don't want, number one, you don't want to stand out because, maybe this my friend over here will hate me because I don't think he agrees with that, or you get self-conscious about yourself and your views, and because they pound that into you every single day. So I think number one, it's that you are a conservative, and that there's a definition to that word. But I think it's just the overwhelming people that are pushing you in one direction. So left has always been more activist, and we've always been more reserved. It's just the bottom line.
For those who didn't, go ahead, Laura. Go ahead.
I would just like to add, though, conservative parents are not usually, for the most part, as radical as liberal parents, where they pound it into their children and make sure their children
in this day and era. Oh my goodness,
repeat the same stuff. Where conservative parents, for the most part, okay, not all, they let their child decide and become who they want to be. Just saying.
That is a great point. Yep. Yeah, because if you got kids this day and age, young kids especially, that's true. They come home and tell you stories about things that come out of classmates' mouths that were definitely planted by the parents, and some liberal fanatic put this in their brain. Basically, I had my daughter come home and was told she should hate herself because she's white, and she's a little, Don, my daughter, she's young, and this didn't just happen. This happened before. And she's like, should I hate myself because I'm white? I'm like, oh my God, I got to address this to an 8-year-old, You know,
not
because
only
this
that,
is what some
but
psychopath racist told their child.
I turned around and I told her, I said, "What are you?" She was like, "Well, I'm a mixture of things." I go, "Exactly." I go, "So you know what you do? You go back to class and say, you know what? I'm a mixture of things. Leave me alone." Simple as that.
Yeah.
We got a little saying around here: embrace your weirdness. It's
But
all right to be different.
But that was a great point that Laura made too, because I mean, when our kids were growing up, I mean, I've obviously always been very political, but when our kids were growing up, I didn't push any of that on them. I didn't,
Yeah.
they knew what the views were and those kind of things, but I don't think they even really understood conservative, liberal. I don't even think they understood those terms. So yeah, we never pushed anything on our kids, and today they can be whatever they want or whatever their views are. That's what we wanted. We wanted to just give them the resources and teach them how to think for themselves, because that's what we wanted was they want them to lead their own lives. Don't rob them of that.
Yeah, don't take that from them. Right. And this is I was going to ask you anyway to recap for people who didn't hear what you got going on tomorrow, because I think it's so important. And somebody had asked, have we pulled Evers' chances in the next governor election? That's obviously Wisconsin. We have not, but don't miss Don's show tomorrow at noon. I'll, of course, be on there to talk more about the Georgia poll. But, Don, you have a guest tomorrow that speaks right to that. And by the way, I think she's the best candidate. I mean,
hands down.
Hands down.
Yeah.
Go ahead, though.
Very, very few races where I would say that and make that proclamation that
Right
this
off the bat,
is
yeah.
right off the gate. Yeah, and there's not even a close second. So I would love to see her be the next governor of Wisconsin. But great interview with Rebecca Clayfish. We talked about a lot of things. We went back and talked a little bit about the recalls and all the things that she's been through. The reason being is it shows you why she is who she is today, right? These things, if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger, kind of thing. And she got stronger and stronger. I would say the same for Governor Walker as well. But we went through those things, but then we went through the current stuff too, right? There's some current issues going on in Wisconsin right now that are pretty crazy. We think that all this stuff with the law, right? So all these DAs and all these people letting people go from prisons and all these things. We think of it as just being like a California, LA, San Francisco, New York. It's happening in Wisconsin. And one of the things that Governor Evers, one of his pledges to the people was to release 50%, half of the prison population during his term. And it's had deadly consequences. And so we talk about some things that are going on right now there. But really interesting interview. What would she do as governor? How would she get control? She basically told me, she said, we want to be the next Florida, but we want to pass you guys. She said, I love Governor DeSantis. She said, but we're coming for you guys. We're going to be the freest state in America. And so I thought that was kind of cool. So she has a lot of respect for, obviously, for Governor DeSantis, but yeah, she wants to turn that state back around to where it was when they left her and make it even better. And I think she's well equipped to do all of those things. We also finally had the interview, and I'm going to play a clip of this with Jack Maxey. So Jack is the guy who's got a copy of Hunter Biden's hard drive. He's been the one that, if you're hearing all the information you're hearing and the things you're seeing released, a lot of those came from him. So this is another one of those things. I'll just say this real quick. This was the Hannity thing. We had this guy, we're going to have him on like 3 weeks ago. And then Hannity calls him. Oh yeah, and it's got to be exclusive. If you're going to go on Hannity's show, whenever you hear Hannity say exclusive, that is not a good thing. That means nobody else gets to talk to him. And he kept him tied up for 3 weeks. I don't even think he ever got the interview. And finally I said, dude, you don't have to. You just tell him you're going to go do something. You can't. He had this guy literally silenced for 3 weeks. He's got a ton of information that he's just uncovered, a ton of things to put out there that people need to know about. Hannity is hurting that. He shut this guy down for 3 weeks. I don't want to dwell on that. But anyway, so we do have Jack Maxey as well. Of course, you're going to be on. We'll have some more polling data, whatever you come up with here. I can't wait to see is this thing. I'm loving watching this Georgia thing progress and seeing the numbers, because it's so important right now that we know all this information. So I'm looking forward to that. Peter Hussey back with National Security, and should be a good show. So noon Eastern time tomorrow. Join me there, donsmithshow.locals.com. And should be a great show.
Yeah, and for my segment, I hope we get time to really dive into what's going to come out in a little bit, which is the governor's race. Polling should be always released with certain caveats, Don. And I'll make no bones, Kemp, obviously has much easier path to 50 than the guys to keep them below it. But, you will soon, and I've talked to you, but everyone will soon see why there really is an X factor here, two, which is that he fizzled as time went on. This is a reduction in support of people who are taking a second look. And then secondly, he's banking on people who say they're going to show, but have not shown up yet. And if the votes were counted right now, he would fall short. And, he needs to get those people out. And tomorrow we'll have those numbers specifically for, we'll have them in a bit. But me and you and I can talk about them more on the show so people really understand. Because I think some of the polling out there right now is just it's a little bit misleading. It is. I think that the chances are lopsided. Because people aren't really showing. They're not showing the granular situation or enough granular data to show an accurate situation.
They just haven't caught up with the times yet. Like we talked about on a couple different things. Things have changed, and you've got to adapt to changing times. And some have, and some haven't. Or one has, and others haven't.
If there's a late push, it's just totally possible that like you said, that enthusiasm and who's actually going to end up showing up is really what it's all about there. And I even argued we should show like 3 different models. Here is if it's like Kemp's ball game, right? Here is if it can get kind of iffy. And here's where, more traditional Republican primary turnout, it would be a whole different ball game. It really would. And if there is this like slew on of election day vote that comes in and it's worse than we think it is, then it changes the dynamic considerably. It really does, but looking forward to putting it out here in a little bit, which I will. We'll see you tomorrow, Don. As always, thank you for joining and doing the questions. We're way over the damn time again. I swear I need to start bringing you on earlier or something on Friday, man. I'm serious,
Yeah.
All
I'm here.
right. Well, I think we might have to talk about doing that. All right.
Sounds good.
We don't run over so badly all the time. All right, man. Give Brenda my best. I'll see you soon. I'll see you tomorrow.
Bye, Laura. Kids.
Bye. Love you, Brenda. And you too, Don.
We love you too.
Indeed.
Indeed.
I'm just going to roll out with the music, folks. No real long goodbye here. I'm just going to roll out with the music. Don't forget, tomorrow, noon Eastern Standard Time, DonSmithShow.locals.com. All right, buddy. See you soon.
See ya.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. There's rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear for a night, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. curse. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette.